Charlie, but I don't think they salute here, boy. Sure we do. And fly high and straight and land soft. Okay, Charlie, say when. Here we go.
I'd just like to start off by asking you a little bit, when Kennedy said that we will go to the moon, where were you and what were you thinking when you heard that?
When Kennedy announced the space program, I was a young lieutenant in Fighter Interceptor Squadron at Ramstein, Germany. And when he made that announcement, we all actually laughed at him. We had 15 minutes in space, Alan Shepard up and down, and he's committing us to go to the moon in 8.5 years. Hoo-ha, yeah, sure. But looking back now, the most amazing thing about it, 8 years and 2 months after he made that announcement, we landed Neil Armstrong on the moon.
And what was the process for that? Did you apply or they recruit you? How did that happen?
Everything in the space program is volunteer. You volunteer to be an astronaut. I graduated from test pilot school in 1965. After I graduated from test pilot school, I realized the best job you could have is being an astronaut. And so being active military, I had to find, I just couldn't call NASA and say, hey, I volunteered. I had to go through channels through the military. We moved to Houston and started my career.
Let's talk a minute about Apollo 11. I'm not sure everybody knows that you had a role in 11. Everybody knows you walked on the moon for 16, but talk a little bit about 11 and how you got to be involved, and maybe just walk us through what you did on that very historic day.
We trained just very diligently. We tied the simulator to the mission control and we trained together. It was like a real mission, and we did over and over and over again these landings. And we had a team in mission control called Sim Soup, and their job was to kill the crew if they could and make you screw up in mission control. But you learned from that. We made a lot of mistakes, but you learned, hey, we're not gonna make that mistake again. And so we were well trained, and yet even with that, we had a tremendous tension in the landings as we were trying to get there for the very first time. As we started down, we started having these problems, communication problems, then we had computer problems, and then we had trajectory problems. And so by the time we got down to the actual landing attempt, the tension was just out the roof with all of these problems. And so due to the trajectory problem, we were running out of gas. We called 60 seconds, meant they had 60 seconds to land. Then we called 30 seconds to land, and we were gonna call an abort. And 13 seconds later, I heard Buzz Aldrin say, contact, engine stop, and we knew they were on the ground. And a great sigh of relief. And Neil Armstrong just seemed like an eternity, but just several seconds later, he came back with his calm voice, says, Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed. But I was so excited, though I couldn't even pronounce Tranquility, it came out twang. Roger twang, I corrected myself. Tranquility, we copy you on the ground, you got a bunch of guys about to turn blue, we're breathing again, thanks a lot.
Jump ahead to 1972, Apollo 16, you're on the launching pad, knowing that they're doing the countdown. What's that like? What's you feeling? What are you thinking?
Intense excitement. You finally got your chance. You're sitting in this, laying in this spacecraft ready to go. We had trained for 2 years and we were ready to go. As you start the engine, the vehicle begins to vibrate from side to side. And that got your attention because I didn't remember anybody telling me it was supposed to vibrate. But then you felt yourself start to move. And I'm on my way. I got my chance. Keep going, keep going. It's a feeling of intense excitement, but a little anxiety because of the vehicle is really shaking and you're not sure this is really what it's supposed to do this much, but everybody says you go and the trajectories go, and we just kept shaking and it slowly accelerated. Apollo Saturn vehicle weighed 6.5 million pounds at liftoff. And we had 5 engines producing 7.5 million pounds of thrust, so it was very slow liftoff. But the engine thrust actually increases as you get to altitude, and you're burning your fuel, so you're accelerating very rapidly. And by the end of the first stage, you're 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the flight, probably 8,000 miles an hour, 35 miles altitude, and they shut the engines down. And you go from 4.5 G's acceleration to 0 like that. So it's like being in a big train wreck. You want to be thrown out of your seat. But the vibration stops, the second stage lights off, and it's smooth as glass from then. But it was exciting that first 2.5 minutes.
Once you got on the moon, what was that first step like?
Exciting is the way to put it. It was, I'm in awe, wonder, excitement. It's the biggest adventure you can ever imagine. It wasn't very emotional. It wasn't very dramatic. I mean, it's not once like Armstrong. We knew we weren't going to sink out of sight. We knew how to walk on the moon. But it was wonder. You felt right at home. It was the most beautiful desert you could ever imagine. Where we landed, the Earth was right overhead, and it always stays there. The Earth never moves as the sun gets higher in the sky. And but as you look up in Apollo, you're looking at the top of your helmet because it's like being in a fishbowl. So we didn't ever see the moon, the Earth from the moon, standing on the moon. The only time I did was when I fell over backwards towards the end of our stay, and then the moon was right out in front of me.
Was that a bit of a scary moment?
Oh, it was scary, really scary, because the backpack is your life support system. It's got your oxygen, all the plumbing, all the regulators, all the batteries, all the electronics, and if it breaks, you're dead, especially if you spring a big leak. And so when I fell over backwards, it was fearful, and the only time I had a moment of fear, and I realized I got to do something. So I rolled right and broke my fall, bounced onto my back, and my heart was just pounding. John Young, my commander, I remember him looking down at me. He said, "That wasn't very smart, Charlie." And I said, "Well, yeah, you're right. Help me up." So he helped me up, and but you could tell that I was okay because the pressure was normal, all the levels of oxygen were normal, the batteries and all of that stuff. And so I began to calm down. But Mission Control was very, very angry at this stupid stunt. And no more Moon Olympics and no more high jumps and no more of this. Get back inside, guys. So I dropped, right before that, I dropped a picture of my family on the moon. That was Charles was 7 at the time, and his brother was 5, almost 5. And so we had this family picture, and on the back of the picture we said, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from planet Earth who landed on the moon in April '72. We all signed it. And I dropped it on the moon, and it's the only family picture ever made it to the moon. We were always looking for what's over the next ridge. What are we going to do here? What are we going to see over here? So this excitement and this adventure of seeing the moon in detail was remarkable. It never left us. And so we didn't want to come back. We were so enthralled with the beauty of the moon. We felt right at home, but you knew it was that all your equipment had to hold together or you were going to die up there. But you never worried about it. It was always like a sense of belonging. Buzz Aldrin called it magnificent desolation, which it was, but it was one of the most beautiful spots I'd ever seen. It was just untouched, unspoiled, and kept having this thought, nobody's ever been here before.
Mission control, you've talked about, you were part of that for a number of the missions. What type of people were attracted to the space program that were going to be involved in an area like mission control?
I think NASA really developed a team, not only mission control, but the astronaut office, the whole kit and caboodle, if you will, not only NASA, but all the contractors. I'd go out and visit the contractors, and no matter what they were doing, whether engineering or technician or janitor or manager, everybody said, "What are you doing?" "I'm sending a man to the moon." So that was their attitude that we had in Apollo, and we knew we had to work together, and you could not land on the moon without mission control. So that teamwork had to be there, and they had to understand what you were doing, and you had to understand what they were doing. We'd have meetings center-wide at the Johnson Space Center, and we'd sit there and called data priority meetings. We planned out every detail, and so the geologists, the engineers, the technicians, the flight controllers, the crew support, the flight crew operations, the crew systems, which was the spacesuit guys, and the backpacks. You know, all of us were involved, and you'd start planning something this way, and somebody, "Wait a minute, you can't do that. You know, we're going to give out oxygen or whatever, you know." So everybody had an input. No matter what level you were, you got heard and listened to. And I think management, top management, told you to do your job, but they listen to you.
So you had an incredible level of trust in the people that were basically making sure it all happened.
Yeah.
Describe that. What gave you that?
We'd go to Grumman, walk the floor, and peek in and, you know, get to know the people who were actually building this spacecraft. And I'd go to the battery plant. The batteries were really important on the lunar module. You know, they had to maintain their status and couldn't overheat and all that stuff. And they were latest technology. And so you got to know these people, and you saw their enthusiasm, and your visit there helped them to focus on, my job is really important. And the suit people, you know, I got to know the lady that sewed the zippers into my spacesuit, and she realized that she had an important job. If that zipper rips while I'm on the moon, I'm dead. And so people saw the importance of their jobs, and while some people never even touched the spacecraft, people in management or whatever, they saw how important their part of the program was. Everybody had a little piece.
One of 12 people to ever walk on the moon, that is a very, very small group of people to have had that experience. I have to believe you guys had to have some ongoing common bond for your entire lives.
We do, still today. There's only 4 of us left alive now, Rick. This year we've seen another lot because it's a 50th anniversary. We've been seeing a lot of one another. And that's helped renew our enthusiasm and reminiscing. But as you lose, my commander, John Young, died January of last year. The ranks are dwindling, but we're still enthusiastic about the story that we tell and the opportunity to encourage the kids, aim high, and focus on your careers, and who knows where the future will bring.
All right, Charlie, thank you very much. We really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
you taking time to share with us today.